So my name is Arlie LaRoche and this is my farm, Farm 140. My husband, Brett LaRoche, and I have operated this farm for 10 years. And we were primarily a livestock farm, growing pork, beef, and lamb. And last year in the spring of 2019, we opened Odla Restaurant in Saskatoon with the head chef Scott Dix and general manager Lacey Sellinger. And so we're sourcing all of the animal products from this farm for Odla, as well as selling it direct to customer. We have a little market in there too. And we decided to bring on horticulturalist Julie Maxwell. She used to have Crocus Hill Garden, and she's on staff at Odla now to grow the vegetables for the dining room and for the market. And actually this spring with COVID, when we had to close the restaurant, we didn't know how long we would be closed for, and we knew we had all of these vegetables to do something with. So Julie came up with the idea to do a harvest share program with the vegetables. So we've got a 30 member harvest share program going on this summer. So that looks like once a week we're bringing in a box of vegetables for people, and they just come pick them up at Odla every Thursday. And then we're also doing a bit of a pop-up farmers market, kind of selling the excess veggies there as well. And then Odla uses them in the dining room, and yeah, so we added this garden space this spring for that purpose. And the soil here is very sandy, so we imported many loads of composted manure, spread that all on top, and then we've got the paths all mulched with wood chips, and we use drip tape irrigation to water everything, and floating row cover to keep the pests like the cabbage moths away from the brassicas, and just trying to plant more in blocks. So rather than having to maintain this walking path for just one single row of carrots, planting a block of carrots to just make it more efficient. The goal is to just grow as much food as possible for Odla, and then also just for the families that signed up for the Harvest Share program. So all about efficiency and yeah, just working with nature to not have to keep weeding this path, but rather cover it with mulch and just using the drip tape to conserve water. We're also doing a lot of rainwater harvesting. So we have eaves troughs on all of our tin roofs out here and collecting that up. We have a big nurse tank to pump that water up, collect it up and bring it out here. And we have a bit of a hugelkultur bed over there started, but we're just going to let it decompose for 3 years or so. We've just got a cereal cover crop planted in there for this season. I have about a 5 or 6 year old hugelkultur bed in the other garden that's doing really well now, but it seemed like it took a few years before it became really productive. It has to start to decompose before that starts to happen. So because we have such a direct connection with Odla, being part owners of it, and so many of the ingredients being grown here, we like to do on-farm dinner service at least once a month throughout the summer. So we have dinners, you know, if you want to find out about when they are, you can just follow Farm 140 or Odla on social media, and we'll let you know through that channel. And so we'll have you out for dinner, we'll give you a bit of a tour of the farm, and everything is grown here, so it's super fresh. And yeah, you can have like a little fire pit after. And so this is an example of one of the wicking beds that we have here at the farm. So we've got an eaves trough that's collecting the water and diverting it into this barrel. And then after the bed dries out and needs to be watered, we just open a little valve on the bottom of the barrel, and it's going to direct water into this weeping tile. So the weeping tile is buried under this bed and makes a little coil here. And then there's a lot of wood mulch on top of the weeping tile. So when I open that valve, it's really going to soak that mulch, and that mulch is going to hold that moisture in. And then it's good. It can go longer distances between watering with this style. And we have these beds in our greenhouse as well, just in half barrels. And just the weeping tile comes up just about to there. There's a gravel layer and then a sand layer to help that moisture wick up, and then the soil, and then you plant into that. And We can go almost a month in the greenhouse, which is really hot between waterings, so that's definitely a time saver.
So I'm Julie Maxwell, and I grow veggies at Farm 140 for Odla Restaurant and Market in Saskatoon. So we have a little less than an acre under vegetable production. We're trying to mostly grow no-till, and I think it's super important because I think it's like absolutely the best thing for the soil health. And I've noticed that, like, in comparison to years when I have used a lot of like rototillers and tilling, the soil gets super compacted and like doesn't hold water. It's just super hard to get plants established in it. And even just this year using like all no-till, I've noticed the soil's like fluffy and nice, holding water way better than it did before. Yeah, and I like it, I want to stick to it. So we have a few strategies, like we're mulching all of our paths with wood chips and straw in order to like try to hold in moisture and keep the weeds out that way. And in terms of like clearing the beds, rather than a tiller, I just pull out the plants and I use hose basically to clean out the weeds. I have like a big wheel hoe that works really well. Like, it's almost easier than a rototiller because I don't need to put fuel in it. I don't need to really maintain it. I just like bring it out into the garden and like push it down the row. I can do one row in like 5 minutes. So I really like that system. So far it seems like the garden's liking it too. Over here we're doing a Three Sisters type garden, which is also something I'm pretty excited about. It's working pretty well. We're doing an unconventional Three Sisters, so instead of the traditional corn, beans, and squash, we're doing sunflower, beans, and cucumbers. But they all serve the same purposes as the traditional Three Sisters. So the corn grows nice and tall, the sunflowers in my situation, grows nice and tall and like creates some shade for the crops. The beans, they create nitrogen in the soil. They fix nitrogen and add like nice nutrients to the soil, which is important because corn and sunflowers are like heavy feeders and they need nutrients like nitrogen. And then the squash acts as ground cover. In my case, cucumbers acts as ground cover and kind of blocks out the weeds. It also might start creeping up the sunflowers and using them as a trellis, which is kind of cool. So they work really well together. It's like a traditional First Nations growing practice that we've adopted and we like really a lot so far. Yeah, and one more thing I guess I'm excited about is that we're using very, very little water in our system. Like, we're relying probably like 80% just on rainwater. So the mulch does a good job at holding water in the ground. We use drip irrigation, which uses just like the smallest amount of water possible. It's really water efficient, and that water comes from our wells. And then out in the field, we harvest rainwater. So we have rain gutters on like every single roof, basically, on the barn, on the greenhouse, everywhere. So we collect water in rain barrels and we put it in a big pump, or in a big tank, and pump it out into the other garden using drip irrigation too. So I'm pretty proud of that as well, that we're using like as little water as possible in a pretty dry climate. Thanks for stopping by and checking out the garden.